Hey, little buddy, want a ride?
Pikachu!
Yeah, whatever. I'll be right back.
Where can you catch all 150 Pokémon? On your Game Boy, that's where. Pokémon for Game Boy is here. With both packs, you can catch them all. Games and systems sold separately.
Pokémon, the global phenomenon. Come on, we all know what Pokémon is. Even a newborn baby that's just recently popped out has had a Pikachu rammed down its throat. It is the richest media franchise in the world, which is actually terrifying, and it recently celebrated its 25th anniversary and has no signs of stopping at all. It dominates every form of media you can imagine, all from the release of a Game Boy game. Well, two actually. Red and green in Japan. Well, there's blue as well, but we'll get on to that. And we'll look at the history of it. Well, essentially my history as well. I'm not going to go too far into it, but I want to tell you about my own thoughts and what I think of the game. See, the year was 1998, and I was reading a little cheat book. You remember what a cheat book was? You know, you used to get these things from magazines when, they used to tell us little guides and our best games we used to play. Now you just have the internet, which kind of spoils it, but that's another thing. I was reading my little cheat book, and I saw this thing for pocket monsters. And it had catch ice, catch thunder, catch fire. And I was like, what's that? That sounds really cool. Like, I'd never played a game before where you had to catch things, so I was kind of interested. But then, a few months later, the images arrived in the magazines, and I was absolutely hooked. Now, I didn't know anything going on about it, I just saw these images. And on the day of its release, I ended up dragging my mother, poor mother, to good old W.H. Smith, and I got Pokémon Blue. I rammed that game into my Game Boy, and, well, the rest was history. I started my game, called myself Ash, because yes, the anime had just come out as well. I picked my little Squirtle and the adventure began. Now let's take a step back, shall we? What is Pokémon? Well, Pokémon is an RPG first and foremost. It's a turn-based game which has you collecting, battling, training, and fighting other trainers. There's also a plot of stopping Team Rocket and beating the Elite Four whilst becoming a Pokémon Master. Now, yeah, there actually is a plot. It's hilarious. If you want me to sum it up quite quickly, it's here's a turtle, a bulb plant thing, or a mini dragon / lizard. You're 10, get out of my house. School? Nope, you don't need to worry about that. Money? I'm not funding you. Go make your own. Food? Accommodation? No. Who needs that at 10? I've literally served the purpose of getting into this age. You are on your own. Now, you play as Red. No, not Ash, as everybody thought back then. The guy's actually called Red. The aim is to beat 8 gym leaders, beat Team Rocket, beat the Elite Four, and get yourself to be the champion. And along the way, you're gonna face your rival, Blue. Let's take another step back, shall we? What even is a Pokémon? Well, it's this world's animals. You can find them in the air, in the land, in the earth, everywhere. And at that time, all the Pokémon could be divided into one of 15 types. You had normal, fire, water, electric, grass, ice, fighting, poison, ground, flying, psychic, bug, rock, ghost, dragon. Yeah, I wanted to say that a little bit faster, but you try and do the editing to have the pictures come in nicely. Come on, I'm only a one-man band here. Eventually, more types would be interested in Dark, Steel, and Fairy, but that's for another day. And essentially with these 15 types, you can go and catch them, train them, or battle against your opponents. Pokémon, or Pocket Monsters, was based off the ideas of Satoshi Tajiri, and it was his childhood collecting insects when he was a child. And giving up, and he grew up, and he wanted to see kids getting out more. Because those times capitalism had taken in, and it was very much a metropolis where people just stayed in most of the time and watched TV and played video games, and he wanted people to get out. So he developed Pokémon. After some discussions with Nintendo, they released Pokémon Red and Pokémon Green. However, some of the sprites looked absolutely dreadful. Exhibit A! Oh, God! What the hell happened to you, Mew? Oh, God! Eventually, there was a re-release of Pokémon Blue. Well, I know it's Pocket Monsters before anyone shouts at me. Come on, I'm just making this easier so it's not confusing. And the sprites are what we are today. Now, back to us. We make our way out of the house and get stopped by Professor Oak, who tells us it's dangerous to go outside and we need to come in and pick one of 3 Pokemon to start our Pokemon journey. You have the choice between Squirtle, Charmander, and Bulbasaur, and let's be honest, I don't care what anyone says, this is one of the most difficult moments in your life. This choice, this choice will dictate who you are as a person, it will dictate your whole childhood, and I don't care what you say, if you had the chance to have all your children lined up and you had to pick your favourite one, picking Squirtle, Charmander, Bulbasaur, this is the most difficult thing ever made in human existence. You think I'm over-egging it, but I'm not. But also, question of the day, if you did have that choice, which one did you pick? I picked Squirtle, but I want to hear from you guys. So in the comments below, put down which one you picked and what you nicknamed them. Because you have that emotional attachment, and I don't care, everyone remembers what they picked and what they called them. Now, along with your starter Pokemon, you get the chance to catch up to 6 Pokemon, which can be interchanged at a Pokemon Center. As I said, you get attached to these things. My original team died in Gold and Silver. I had trained them up, transferred them to be world beaters in Red and Blue, transferred them to Gold and Silver, but unfortunately there was no way for them to go to Pokemon Ruby, Sapphire and Emerald. So they died after the battery died, and rest in peace my original team. Now, what is the gameplay? Because I did say it was an RPG. Well, battles can either be random encounters you meet in the field, or battles with other trainers. You send out a Pokemon, they send out a Pokemon. A Pokemon essentially represents your character in an RPG, and the aim when you have a battle is to take your opponent to 0 and you gain experience. When you're in the wild, you can actually catch the Pokemon that you face, and when its health is low enough, you have a bigger chance of throwing a Pokeball and catching it. And I don't care what anyone says, pressing down B definitely works. We all did it, they said it's not true. I've been using that for years, and I still do. I don't care what anybody says. Now, I mentioned also those 15 types earlier on. Well, essentially, there's a bit of a rock, paper, scissors element here. Some Pokemon have advantages over other. For example, there's water beats fire, fire beats grass, and grass beats water. Do you see what I mean? The rock, paper, scissors. Along with its type advantage, each Pokemon has up to 4 moves which you're allowed to choose from their move list. You have their own stats, which makes them either really fast, really slow, really strong in their attack, really strong in their special, really strong in their defense, loads of HP, and you can alter how that gets affected. So yeah, it's kind of rock, paper, scissors with chess, with maths. That's probably the best way of doing that. And your little critters have the chance to get stronger. Some of them can evolve into different forms. You can do that using either experience and they hit a certain level, you can use an evolution stone, good old Pikachu turns into Raichu, or you can trade. So that was the crafty thing, we'll get into that, and that's coming in the future. But once you evolve, you get new moves, increased stats, better designs. Let's look at some of them. For example, Magikarp. Let's be honest, we all should have bought that fish when we had the chance. He is absolutely terrible. Magikarp is the worst Pokemon stat-wise in the game, and it only has Splash until level 15, where eventually it finally learns Tackle. However, 5 more levels later, level 20, and boom! You get a Gyarados! And I don't care what anyone says, his design is absolutely awesome, but he just sucks in the game. Other ones, you can actually leave the first cave, the first dungeon, and have a Nidoking by the end of it. Yeah, and that's cool because you'll need it later on. Now, I mentioned them earlier. Essentially, the game is broken up to many ways. There are dungeons such as cave, it could be buildings, it could be laboratories, power plants, different things that you get to explore. Now, these dungeons can sometimes be a pain in the backside, although I've been playing this for a long time and I can literally do this blindfolded. It's got to that stage. I know I need help. When you go into some of these caves, they have probably brought on some of the most depressing moments of my childhood. Don't believe me? Show somebody a Zubat and see how they feel. Oh, we've all had those moments. The goddamn Zubats. And every time I go to my local zoo and I see a bat, I think of Zubat. Every time I go to a cave, I think of Zubat. It's literally ingrained in my memory. Again, if not, you're all lying. You're all lying to yourself. It definitely happens. So getting out those dungeons is a pain in the ass. If you go into the buildings, there's often a chance you're going to be fighting a lot of Pokemon trainers, such as Team Rocket's hideout, or if you're going to try and save Sylph Company. Yeah. Now, I mentioned it earlier. Let's talk about the gym battles. Now, the gym battles, in my opinion, serve as kind of a checkpoint. They serve as a boss for that area. And it's basically to see how you are getting on as a trainer, and it also rewards your progression into the game. The aim of these gym battles is you can go in, fight the minions if you wish, fight the gym leader, and then get a badge. And I miss these type of gyms where you just go in, fight the minions, and then move on. Now we have to do all this random stuff like, I don't know, go and catch Pokemon in a herd, which is just ridiculous with a broken frame rate. Or in Generation 6 where you have to make a meal. I miss those days. One of them was controversial back in the day. I don't care what anyone says, I found it was dodgy. Lieutenant Surge was so paranoid, he had us check bins for these security switches. Like, it's a bin. Like, I don't know what's in that bin. There could be a nappy in there, there could be a needle in there. I don't know, it was ridiculous. And I don't care what anyone says, as a kid, that was so infuriating. It was ridiculous. Now, usually beating these gym leaders allowed you the access of a HM move, which we call a hidden machine. Hidden machines were abilities you can teach your Pokemon and allowed you to essentially progress further into the game. But first of all, let's actually go into these gym leaders, shall we? They are important milestones, and some of them are quite funny. Really, I've loved them, and I have fought them so many times, they're like literally brothers and sisters to me. The first gym leader you fight is Brock. Now, Brock is the rock-type gym leader. He has Geodude and an Onix and no shirt on and likes to cover his nipples. I don't know why. I don't know why he hasn't got a shirt on. That's on you. I have no idea. But Brock really serves as a major hurdle depending on which Pokemon you started with. Don't believe me? Let's go through it. If you picked Bulbasaur to begin with, or Squirtle, you are a grass and a water type, which means your moves are 4 times super effective against Geodude and Onix, who also have a low special, whereas water and grass are special moves, so you will absolutely breeze this game. If you pick Charmander, good luck. Unfortunately, if you pick Charmander, well, his fire moves don't do anything to Onix or Geodude, so you're in for a bad time. The other problem is who you're going to use to try and fight it. Now, you can go and catch Pokemon before, but Rattata and Pidgey aren't going to help you because they're normal and they're normal and flying, so their moves aren't going to do anything. You might have to go into Viridian Forest, which is so cool, and you can go catch a Weedle, which might help you a little bit, but Beedrill's not going to help at all because it's bug and poison. Again, those moves don't work. You can catch a Pikachu, yes. The mascot is in this forest, and you can catch him there and then. But this isn't the anime, so we can't cheat. So Pikachu's useless in this battle. The only one you can potentially catch is a Caterpie, which eventually you can evolve into Butterfree, and then Butterfree might be helpful to you. However, there's a lot of grinding that needs to be done. And I felt sorry for anyone who did pick Charmander, because yeah, what a way to kick off your career. You get to the first part of this game, and then you just get absolutely stomped. and the only way to get past is through grinding? Now, the interesting thing about this battle, and I'm going to say these battles, and I'm going to keep using this is my footage, so nobody could copyright strike it, because this is my old videos that I used to use, so meh, is when you used to go as Charmander, you can use your fire moves if you want, and sometimes you might inflict the status condition Burn. Now, Burn would actually halve the attack of the opposing Pokemon. Unfortunately, this is Gen 1, where they like to cheat, and they will constantly use burn heals immediately. So that strategy's not gonna work, which is a real pain. Literally, Brock, are you that scared of the fire, you have to literally put it out straight away. Just, I don't know, put a shirt on, mate. Put a shirt on. So yeah, if you've got Squirtle and if you've got Bulbasaur, you're gonna fly through this really quick. If you've got Charmander, you've got a bit of grinding to do. But you get it done, and then you move on. The second gym leader is Misty.
I'm actually using pretend crybaby, just to trick him, observe. Oh, he's in a lassie. I'll never have kids now.
Misty, no, look, I apologise. Have a free shot, have a free shot.
Misty herself is a water-type gym leader. Yeah, that's not very good for good old Charmander, who probably at this point is a Charmeleon, and if you did get a Nidoking, yeah, they're not going to have a good time. So it's pretty imperative at this point you have caught a Pikachu and you've leveled that thing up. She's armed with a Staryu and a Starmie. The thing is with this battle, is that Staryu is pretty much a bit of a joke. However, Starmie is not. Starmie is a fast Pokemon, it also has a high special, and it's armed with Bubble Beam. And Bubble Beam at this stage of the game is absolutely destructive. It will kill your Charmeleon, it will kill your Nidoking in one, and probably your Pikachu, so you're not going to have a fun time. Squirtle can hold its own because it's probably a Wartortle at this point, and if you've got Bide, you can just soak up the damage and fire it back and have a really good laugh. If you've got Bulbasaur, who will be an Ivysaur at this point, you're literally on easy street, and it's hilarious, and you're fine. Don't worry about it. So again, if you pick Charmander, I'm so sorry for you, I really am. The next gym leader is Surge. Now the creepy thing about Surge is, whilst he's absolutely enormous in the anime, he mentions that he used to use Pokemon to zap his enemies during the war, which signifies two things. One, this has had a war, and two, Pokemon were used. And that's quite scary, because how were they used? And, you can imagine that the abilities these Pokemon have. Like, he used to electrify his enemies. But what about if you had a whole team of Scythers? Or people who burn people? Oh, war's a horrible thing, we all know that. But I imagine throwing Pokemon into the mix will just be massacres. Oh, God. Oh, I don't want to think about it. Either way, once you get through his security trap, he's armed with a Voltorb, a Pikachu, and a Raichu. Now, as Squirtle, it's also the first time you're going to be facing any problems. But the good thing is, you can just go to Diglett's cave, get a Diglett, and you can have a bit of a laugh. Because once you get to the Raichu, well, he actually can't hurt you. He's armed with Thunderbolt, Thundershock, Thunderwave, which don't do anything to little Diglett. Now, it's Growl. Yeah, it's going to lower your attack, it's just going to take a bit longer. But it's funny. So yes, this also helps your type advantages. So if you can prepare for gym leaders, it makes it quite easy. The fourth one is Celadon City Gym and my secret lover, Erica. She is the grass gym leader. So for once, Charmander is now in Happy Land and he can literally go start having fun and burn the place to the ground. Like all that pumped up aggression, he's going to be like an emo kid. He's like, yeah, burn! She's armed with a Victreebel, a Tangler, and Vileplume. Now, what this game starts to teach you at this point is that there are little bits of the game you need to learn. And this is one of the first ones that starts teaching about the ideas of poisoning, sleeping, and then using moves like Wrap just to annoy people. So our Pokemon are full of status affecting things, and it's just a pain in the arse. As I said, if you're armed with good old Charmeleon by this point, it's an absolute breeze. Squirtle, yeah, he ain't having this. This is not for him. Bulbasaur's going to realise this isn't really the battle for him as well, because although he is a grass type and he's not going to be facing any real problems, well, he can't use any of his poison moves. He can't use, because they're not going to do any damage, really. He can't use Sleep Powder, he can't use Poison Powder, he can't use Stun Spore, because they don't work on grass Pokemon. But either way, once you get through Erica, you really should have a good little team together. Now, there's arguments about who the 5th or the 6th gym leader is, because essentially at this point with the game, you can go wherever you want. You could have done that prior. Like, I've done runs where I've often forgotten to fight Erica. I'm like, oh, fudge, I've forgotten to fight her. And I'm like, why can't I fight the final gym leader? Oh, yeah, because Erica. And that's one cool thing about Pokemon, is you can go in most directions that you want after the first few gym leaders. But for argument's sake, and literally don't come at me in the comments, I'm going to consider Gym 5 is Fuchsia City and Koga. Remember what I said earlier about the fact that the game's trying to teach you stuff? Well, this is one of those moments. Koga is all about using techniques like minimize and smokescreen and poison, and it's a pain in the backside. We've all fought it. That muck will use minimize, which means its evasiveness stats goes up by 2 stages, and then you can't hit the thing, and then it'll use a poison gas on us, which isn't fun, and then you just can't hit the goddamn muck. And when you do think you're about to win when you get to his wheezing, oh yeah, I should say, he's on with coughing, muck, coughing, and wheezing. There we go, not forgetting. When you do get to his wheezing and you think you're about to win, the thing uses self-destruct and that's the end of the battle. Well, that's not very fun, is it? The cool thing about his gym, though, is that you get to walk around and try and find the real Koga. I love that. Well, he is a ninja, by the way. The 6th gym leader is Saffron City Sabrina. Now, she focuses on psychic types, and her lesson, yeah, that psychic types are absolutely broken. That's all I'll tell you with this. And also, she has the ability to just use stupid moves like recover her Pokemon when they've got full health. Well done. Well done, Sabrina. She's armed with Kadabra, Mr. Mime, Venomoth, and Alakazam. 3 of them aren't really a problem. It's the Alakazam which is an issue. Alakazam is one of the best Pokemon in the game at this point. It's fast, it has a high special, and it can hit you like an absolute truck, because not many things at this point resist Psychic type, so you are in big trouble. It also is a big step up because this thing is level 43, so at this point your Pokemon should be fully evolved. If you know what you're doing and you go into this battle and just literally face it with someone who has high attack, you should be fine. But as a kid, what attack? What special? I had no idea. But when you really clear that out, you are on a bit of a roll. The 7th gym leader is Cinnabon Island, and you fight Blaine. Now, I like Blaine essentially as a character. I think he's great, but I think his team is pretty poo. He's armed with a Growlithe, a Ponyta, a Rapidash, and an Arcanine. He is the fire gym leader. And there's the thing. At this point in the game, I don't want to be fighting a Growlithe and a Ponyta. I think you should replace them. I think it should be like a Charizard, or a Flareon, or a Magma, like the anime. That's a much cooler team. You shouldn't be fighting these low-level Growlithes and Ponytas at this point. And if you've got Squirtle, who should be a Blastoise, just walk in and have a laugh. This is your one where you can just click A. The funny thing with this is where you really see how bad the AI is, because yeah, although they've got full health, Blaine decides, you need a Super Potion! Just throw Super Potion, it'll do it! Super Potion! Super Potion! Excellent battling, excellent battling. We'll go to the 8th gym leader in a moment, because let's take a step back. In this game, the main bad guys are would you call them the Mafia? Yeah, I'm just going to call them the Mafia, it's an easy way of doing it. They're a naughty criminal gang called Team Rocket, where their job is to steal Pokemon for profit. You find out they're led by a guy called Giovanni. Now, you have to fight Giovanni a few times. Once you have to fight him in his underground lair in Team Rocket headquarters, once in Silphco, and then finally, you have to fight him as the gym leader. He is the Viridian City gym leader, and it's a bit of a front. The funny thing I always thought when you were fighting Team Rocket is you've got a 10-year-old walking around Silph Company, walking around their hideout, and he's just basically wrecking stuff. Why does nobody just put a gun in him and send his mother a body and then say that's what happens when you don't give them proper education? But no, just let them do what they want. I know I'm going on a tangent, but come on, think about the logistics here. So you get to the Viridian City gym leader, and essentially it's a lot of spinning platforms. He is a ground leader. He's armed with a Rhyhorn, a Dugtrio, a Nidoqueen, Nidoking, and a Rhydon. See, that's a better team, isn't it? His Pokemon end up being level 50 when you get to the Rhydon. Again though, if you've got your Bulbasaur, if you've got your Squirtle, you're in for a good time. Unfortunately, yes, as we've said, Charizard at this point is in for a bit of a difficult time, but it should be okay because by this point, you should have a team which is able to take them on. If you've got any sort of water Pokemon, you're just gotta have a laugh. So at this point, you have your 8 badges, and you're on to fight the Pokemon League. However, there's one trainer I've not really spoken about, and his name is Blue. Now let's go back to the beginning of the game, shall we? Blue is Professor Oak's grandson, and it's absolutely terrifying that Professor Oak does not know his name. I think onset of dementia is coming. You get the chance to name him, and most people probably did, called him Gary. Yep, we all did, anime, but his actual name is Blue. Now Blue, as your rival, likes to keep you on your toes, and his starter Pokemon will have the advantage over you. So for example, you pick Bulbasaur, he'll pick Charmander, you pick Squirtle, he picks Bulbasaur. See what it is? And he meets you at various points of the games, as again, is another bit of a boss, and is another bit of checker to see where you are. And you get to see him growing as well. His team evolves constantly, and he likes to mock you and basically say that, well, yeah, I'm better than you in every sense of the world. He's probably not as cocky as Gary Oak in the anime, but even still, I still love seeing Blue, and he's literally this cocky arse trying to beat us. You actually end up fighting Blue once more before you get to the Indigo Plateau. Now, what's the Indigo Plateau? Well, this is where the home of the champions are, the Elite Four. Once you've got your 8 badges, you are now ready to prove yourself against the best of the best in this Pokemon world. You have to fight 4 gym leaders back to back, and if you're able to beat them, you become the Pokemon League champion. Make sure you've got your potions and revives ready, because once you go through that door, you ain't coming back. First up is Lorelei. Lorelei, I don't know how this thing works. She's the Ice-type member of the Elite Four. She's armed with a Dugong, a Cloyster, a Slowbro, a Jinx, and a Lapras. Whoa, 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 whoa. Whoa, whoa. Slowbro ain't ice. And this kind of has one of the problems, is that although we have 151 Pokemon with 15 different types, yeah, not everyone gets a fair shake of this. If you're a normal type, or for example a water type, there's plenty of you. Ice Pokemon? Not many. Dragon's another one. Fighting's another one. We get through this and you notice a bit of a pattern. Either way, have electric Pokemon, you're fine. The second member is Bruno. He is our fighting type gym leader, and yes, we all love Bruno because he's an absolute beast. He's armed with an Onix, that's not a fighting type, Hitmonchan, Hitmonlee, another Onix, another not a fighting type, and Machamp. Again, if you have a Psychic Pokemon, just laugh. Just laugh your way to the bank. Third up is Agatha. Oh, Agatha. She was once Professor Oak's friend, and it's actually, she is the one fighting at the beginning of this video. Yep, she's got the Gengar, Professor Oak has the Nidorino. Her battle can be a bit of a pain in the arse, because it's like the Koga battle and the Erika battle where she likes to use status effects. She's armed with a Gengar, a Golbat, a Haunter, an Arbok, and a Gengar. They love to use Confuse Ray, which is a pain in the arse, and it will always bloody work. Hypnosis, moves like Dream Eater, Toxic, it's just one of those nightmare games. And the problem is that Gengar is a fast Pokemon to begin with. Her first one is level 56, and her second one is level 60, so you better be ready for it, because once it's able to put you to sleep, you're in big trouble. You're in huge trouble. And the final member of the Elite Four is Lance, the Dragon Master. Oh my god, I love Lance's design. It's so cool. He's armed with a Gyarados, it's not a dragon, Dragonair, Aerodactyl, not a dragon, and Dragonite. Also one of the big problems, there's only 3 dragons in the game. Dratini, Dragonair, Dragonite. So, yeah. However, I let that slide, because Aerodactyl looks cool as anything, and Gyarados definitely looks like a dragon. Now, once you beat him, you are officially the champion. But are you? No. Because Blue has managed to get there first, and you've got to fight him to finish it off. And his team is now super powered, and his final Pokemon, his starter, is level 65. His is basically all about what the game should be. You have a strong team with multiple types to cover your multiple weaknesses and strengths. Now, I'm not going to go through his team because his team can change depending on who you have. But what I'll say is, oh my god, I remember when I did this for the first time as a little kid. The memories I had, I was like, yes, I've just beaten the Elite Four. What a journey that was. And then you've got to fight this guy. What? I think I'd used all my potions at this point. Now, don't come at me and go, yeah, this game is easy. Yeah, it is an easy game, if you know what you're doing. But as a kid, like I was like 11, 12 years old, this was hard. I had no idea what was coming my way. It was frighteningly hard. And I can roughly remember my first team. And I managed to catch myself a Blastoise, I had that. I had a Raichu, I had a Pidgeot. I definitely had an Articuno, I definitely had Zapdos, and I definitely had Moltres, because I saw them all level 50 and went, wow, legendaries, let's use them. Yep, I was one of those. But even so, you got to remember, you get these Articunos, the Zapdos, and the Moltres level 50. Yeah, Blue's favourite Pokemon is level 65 by the end of this, so there's a bit of a gap. Either way, I did it. I beat Blue, and I became the Pokemon League champion. And you just feel like an absolute god. And you feel, well, that's the game over, isn't it? No. No, it's not. And that's the beauty of Pokemon. The game doesn't end at this point. There's still a lot to do. What's to do? Well, let's go into it. One of the main aims of this game is to catch all 151 Pokemon, which was a clever little thing because it kept you going past the post-game, because you couldn't get them all until the actual post-game. But here comes the niche. You could spend all the time pre and post-game trying to get as many Pokemon as you want, but you're not going to catch them all. See, notice why I keep saying red and blue? There were two different versions at this point, and each had their own catchable ones that were only available on that cartridge. So, to be able to catch all the Pokemon, you had to trade with friends. And this was the brilliant social aspect, definitely social aspect, that Nintendo were doing. You needed to use a link cable to trade with people from other versions to get the Pokemon you wanted. So, for example, here's the ones on Pokemon Blue, here's the ones on Pokemon Red. So, I wanted those Pokemon, so I had to trade. Also, some of those Pokemon could only evolve from trading, which was Haunter, Graveler, Machoke, and Kadabra. Once they were sent over, they immediately evolved, and then you had to hope to God your mate would send it back, especially if it was your Gengar or Alakazam, because they're usually in your main team. Apart from trading, you could battle, and this is what I did. I battled for hours, because you could make your own team. And you'll eventually realise you have your own team from the game, but that's not really going to stack up if you want to be the best of the best, and you have to constantly grind. Want to know? Well, look at this. Essentially, when I started playing the game, this was the team I finished with. Was this when I finally realised how to play the game and actually do it seriously? No. To actually be the best of the best, I was on with this team. An Alakazam, a Zapdos, an Executor, a Raiden, a Starmie, and a Chansey. Yes, a Chansey. Chansey was a beast, and we'll get onto that later. Now let's go behind the scenes a little bit. The impact of this game. The game was an instant success. Records tumbled in America, in Britain, in Japan, worldwide. Everyone was playing this game. Everybody. Apart from the games, it spawned so many things. There were toys, there were clothes, music CDs, manga. It spawned a card game which is still played today, and I just got myself an X and Y Charizard. Oh, it looks so beautiful. And if you had a first edition Charizard, you're quids in. You are quids in. It also spawned a very popular anime, which I believe was the reason this series even got pushed so much, where you followed the adventures of Ash Ketchum as he tried to catch them all and be the best, although Ash has now moved on. Ash, thank you very much for your sacrifices and all the things. And then from that, it also brought movies. It was everywhere. Pokemania was absolutely everywhere. And I was hyped. I was swept away. Oh, God, I was swept away so much. I couldn't believe how good this was. But there was controversy. Yeah, surprisingly, because when there's always a success, there's always someone there to moan. There's a few of them. Let's go through them. Well, the ones that I know. PETA, the animal rights organisation, believed this was animal cruelty, because basically you were having two animals fighting each other, and they were basically comparing it to cockfighting. Yeah, well, maybe. Well, there's no gambling, and these animals don't die, they faint. They like fighting each other. Oh my God, that Arbok got chopped in half. Yeah, don't read the manga, everyone. Don't read the manga. Please don't do that. That's a horrifying thing. You had people who were arguing that it was against God. Yes, that actually it was devil worshipping. Don't believe me? Watch this video.
Pokémon, Pocket Monster, the spiral. And it stands for what? male fertility. It's supposed to be able to mesmerize and hypnotize its enemies. This character over here is called Mewtwo. Every time that you see Mewtwo, he's in this pose. 3 fingers. It means hail Satan. Cute little one. Everybody, okay, everybody go, oh, come on. His tail. It's a lightning bolt. And it's the satanic Z, the yellow. What do you see? Lightning bolt. Lightning bolt. Look here. All-seeing eye. Up here is the clenched fist, symbol for rebellion, anarchy. Powerful witchcraft symbol where my finger is. Down here is another powerful witchcraft symbol. And down at the bottom here, this blue ball down in here is the symbol for energy of water. Earth, wind, and fire, the 3 basic elements of all witchcraft. There's a war going on right now for the children because Satan wants them really bad. Gotta catch them all. Gotta get them while they're young.
My God, he's reaching, isn't he? That is reaching from the highest order, but people will do that sometimes. There was also a problem with the character design for Jinx.
Jinx! Jinx! Bitch, shut up!
This is a prime example of 2 cultures not mixing. Now, when I looked at it, it reminded me of, like, blackface, which is pretty offensive. Yep, it ain't go down too well. However, there's comments that it's actually based on a Japanese mythical creature called Yuki Onna. But sometimes even that isn't enough, and they decided to actually change Jinx's colour from black to purple. And however, there have been some funny pickings at this. Namely, this gentleman.
Hello, I am Blue Popo. To better confine to FCC regulations, I replaced the former racially insensitive Mr. Popo. Today I bring you wonderful news.
Okay, I'll bite. What the hell is this?
Oh, hello my crass counterpart. I am Blue Popo, and I...
No.
Pardon?
Prepare to be assimilated. Whatever do you mean? Oh no! No! No!
Now, this game was so popular, and there was so much controversy and so much hype around it, even the mighty South Park decided to chive in on this. And I remember watching this episode and absolutely dying, and I wanted to buy everything related to Chin Pokémon. I want to collect shoe! I want a shoe. I want a shoe. Now, if you have been following along to the episode so far, I want to just tell you, thank you from the bottom of my heart, I really appreciate it. But I also want to let you know that we at Retro Wars do a podcast every week where we talk about old games such as Pokémon Red and Blue. I decided to do this episode and it has been covered with me and my friend Jake McCauley, whose YouTube channel I have linked in this description. Come over to this where we do sprinkle some profanities over this and have a bit of fun. As I said, Retro Wars is on every week where we talk about old games and I hope to see you there. So, collecting Pokemon. Yeah, I mentioned this earlier. The goal was to get to 150. Each route had their own Pokemon. You could go in caves, you could go in grass, surf for them, fish for them. You could even go in the goddamn Safari Zone. Oh my god, what a nightmare this was. Oh, if you remember the Safari Zone, the original one, you could either throw a rock at the Pokemon, which just seemed cruel. You could throw food at them to help them stay there, or just throw a Pokeball. And when you got to catch ones like Kangaskhan, you've got to catch Tauros or Chansey. Oh, especially when you've got to catch like 20 odd Chanseys to try and find a good one. Oh, and they run away. No. Oh, it's horrible. Some Pokemon were one-time events. Articuno, Zapdos, Moltres. You balls that up, you don't get another chance, and make sure you save before them. Some of them you were given a choice, as I said with the starter. You had the choice of Hitmons, you could have had a fossil which you could have brought others. You had to trade with others, which was absolutely great. And eventually, when you get all 150 Pokemon, you get a certificate. Yeah! Now, I was a hero back in the day because when Pokemon Stadium came out, I went out and caught all 150 Pokemon. Now, not just catching them and evolving them. No, I actually had every one. 150 Pokemon, all saved. God, it took me a long time. I had them all saved on Pokemon Stadium. So if somebody wanted to complete their Pokédex in 2 minutes, I'd be that man. I'd transfer all the Pokemon I had from Stadium into their boxes, save it, and then transform them all back. But hey-ho, there you got a completed Pokédex within 2 minutes. Professor Oak would be proud. There is one Pokemon I haven't spoke about yet. The one you get in the post-game. See, when you get to Cerulean City, you can see a guy standing outside a cave and he's not letting you in. But once you've beaten the Elite Four, he's gone and you can go in. Now, this place holds many powerful Pokemon at very high levels. One of them? The mighty Mewtwo. The funny thing was, if you'd still kept your Master Ball, this was a breeze. You just threw the ball at him and you won. But if you'd used on your Master Ball on something else, because you could have not known Mewtwo was coming, you've got a tough battle ahead of you. See, he can use Recover as much as he wants, and he's not going to run out. I had to basically be one of those people at school who was so good at the game, I had to help people get him. I had to either send my Pokemon over to try and do the job, or find out what I had to deal with and try and do it. But it was always so much fun trying to catch Mewtwo, and I don't think there's been many Pokemon battles since where it's that cool. Now, the longer you play the game, you find out there were rumours, and oh yes, there were rumours aplenty. There were so many schoolyard talks of new evolutions, you could get back on the SSN, what was under that truck. Often people said it was a Mew, they said there's a Mew, but none of these were true. However, there were some that were actually hidden, but you didn't know. Mew was available in the first game, but he wasn't under a truck. He was available through two ways. You could get him via event, which I did the first time, but if you knew what you were doing with game manipulation and glitches, you could actually get him before the second gym. Haha, a level 5 Mew! It was awesome! You also had the chance to fight Professor Oak, who I believe was meant to be your final challenger. Don't believe me? Here's an actual tutorial from my old videos explaining how to do it. And it allows us to fight the game's final boss. The final boss's Pokemon are all a higher level than the rivals at the end of the game, and are actually nearing, if not equal, to Mewtwo's level. Now, to do this you have to meet certain conditions, so get ready people who are about to go back to school. First, obtain a Pokemon with a special stat of 226. The quickest way of doing this is going after everybody's favourite purple dildo Mewtwo. I caught one with a stat of 223 and then used the rare candy which gets into the magic number. Then go to the entrance of the underground tunnel where this guy is. Remember him? The next step, you need to get into this position where you'll then press down and bring up the menu at the same time. When the menu pops up, fly off to Cerulean City. Now when you actually start the animation to fly off, you've technically entered his line of vision for a battle, but I'm like, nah, I'm out of here. Also, it should be noted you can't bring up the menu again until you complete the next step. When you arrive to Cerulean City, head north to the other guy who I said to avoid and just defeat him. Next, fly out to Fuchsia City and head to this patch of grass where you're aiming to get a Ditto to come say hello. Once you've encountered a Ditto, let it transform into the Mewtwo or whatever 226 special Pokemon you're using. Then remember the Lapras I got back in the Silk Company? Well, bring it out and start using the amazing move Growl. Now, depending on if you use between 4 to 6 Growls, it will reflect of one of the Pokemon the final boss will use. Now, once you've done this, leave the battle, it doesn't really matter how, and now the glitch is set. Now, get ready, it's time to fight the boss. Head to Lavender Town and make your way west. When you do this, the menu pops up automatically showing that the conditions have been met. Get ready. When you close that menu, the battle begins, and it is none other than Professor Oak. This is incredible, and in my eyes, one of the best secrets in the Pokemon series. He starts off with a Tauros, so I use this chance to use double team so he can't touch me. It is amazing that this code is in the game and was left from the final product. When I was recording this on the way to work, I nearly grabbed a person to be on the train and said, look at this awesome shit. And when I was ready, I finished it off with a Body Slam. Executor was finished off with 2 Ice Beams, next was Arcanine, who was finished off with the Surf with ease, and then the final starter, Charizard. So we all know what happened to the final starter after all those years. Oak used it to create the Super Dragon. I then easily defeat it and was on to Pokemon Gyarados, and with a few Body Slams, it was all done. And that's it! I have done it. I have finished Pokemon Red completely. I still can't believe how someone found this glitch considering the steps to get it. If you're wondering what the Growls were for, they decided whether Oak would use a Charizard, a Blastoise or a Venusaur in the battle. One of the big rumours that went around, and actually was very true, which a lot of people got onto, was called Missing No. There's no way Nintendo wants you to know this. With a bit of game manipulation and a bit of glitching, you ended up going up and down Cinnabar Island and you came across this thing. It looked horrific. Now the point of getting Missing No is that it could actually duplicate your items. It would show you some bits of data which just look wrong, you were fighting Pokemon from all sorts of different levels, and if you did this, you know you'd done it, there was no denying it, because your Pokemon Hall of Fame would be corrupted, and there was a chance you could actually end up getting your whole game corrupted, and your save file be wiped. Oh my god, corruption of save files was such a big rage back in those days, because I don't care, it happens to everybody, you could lose all your gameplay, and there was nothing you could do about it. But if you use Missing No, the chances of that happening were even higher. So yeah, that's on you if you did that. But just look, I want to calm down a little bit because there is a lot of things that are positive about this game. First of all, the designs. They were absolutely incredible. They were so good. Like, those first 151 are still some of the best and have not been beaten. Some of these designs are still being used today. Let's be honest, whenever you see anything being sold, it's always Pikachu, Charmander, Squirtle, and Bulbasaur. I love the visuals of the game. It reminded me of Link's Awakening, which I'd played prior. Each Pokemon had their own sprite. Some of them were amazing. Some of them were absolutely dreadful. Let's just go through some of these good ones, which I think are absolutely incredible, and here are the ones which are absolutely dreadful. Oh, good God. The areas look quite detailed, I like the character models, and I love the fact that all the Pokemon's attacks got absolutely animated. It was a game that I was fully immersed in from the moment I played it. One thing I'll always praise with this generation, the music. It's God tier. You're hearing it right now. Apart from that low health noise. Yeah, that I don't like. I'm glad they corrected that one. Also, there was a weird thing with Lavender Town music, had a weird thing on Japanese kids, had an effect on them. That's strange. But out of all the songs, the ones that get me the most are the intro music, as we played at the beginning, and then the final battle against the champion. This battle is incredible. However, now, I kind of now link this whenever I hear it to fighting Red in Pokemon Gold, Silver, and Crystal. And then somebody upped it to this. Now, despite the praise I'm giving this game, there were quite a few flaws. The Pokemon game, it had a few things that were broken with it. First of all, two frustrating things that just happened, which was just annoying. One was the item slots. Yeah, it's one of those things when you only have limited items and you gotta start throwing stuff out. So when you get a prize, like, oh, you've picked up the Silph key, or you've picked up a Master Ball. Oh, your bag's full. Oh, for f***'s sake. Luckily, you can just throw the item you want out and just use it, whatever, and then you can just pick up the other one. The main frustration, oh my god, the main frustration was the Pokemon box. See, Pokemon boxes, you had up to 15, I think it was back then, and only about 20 spaces per time. So once you have your team of 6 and you throw a Pokemon, let's say you've caught another Pidgey, he becomes number 7. Well, he's not welcome on the team, and he gets sent to a Pokemon box. Unfortunately, once that box is full, then yeah, you need to go back to the Pokemon Center and switch the box, otherwise you can't catch any other Pokemon. This was a problem, especially when you got to all those one-off Pokemon, the Articunos, the Moltres, the Zapdoses, and the Mewtwo's, and then you find that your box is full! God damn it! So there's nothing you can do, you've got to make your way all the way back again, reset the box, then go back. What a pain in the arse it was. But that was still not one of the main problems this game had. There was one type, as I mentioned, which was absolutely broken. That being the Psychic type. The Psychic type. It was absolutely broken. The problem was, it only had 2 types which are actually strong against it. But yeah, the Pokemon that actually were of that right typing of Bug and Ghost were pretty poo to try and fight it. Let's look at them. The best Bug option was Beedrill, and the best Ghost option was Gengar. Beedrill was only armed with Pin Missile, which wasn't a very good move, and Gengar was armed with Lick, which is a terrible move. And the other problem they had is that they're dual typing. And that dual type, Poison, which is weak to Psychic. And the other problem was that they were slower than something like Alakazam. So really, Alakazam would just dominate them, so the main threat was gone. So that's one reason Alakazam was such an absolute monster to go against. Bug Pokemon and Ghost Pokemon were pretty thin at that point. Also the fact that there were kind of rubbish moves. As I've used those examples, there were others. Let's look at Dragonite, for example, the only dragon fully evolved Pokemon in the whole game. The only dragon move that was there was Dragon Rage, which was a 40 base damage. Yes, later moves were added, but at the time, you had a dragon Pokemon which really couldn't use dragon moves, which meant you were like, that's a bit poo. So well done, Game Freak, did you not test that thing? The other thing that they really screwed up was the special stat. Pokemon have different stats. They have HP, attack, defense, special, and speed. Now in later generations, the special stat was split to special attack and special defense. But in Generation 1, no, it was just special. So your special attack and special defense were exactly the same thing. So if you had a high special stat, it also meant you had a high special attack and special defense. So if we compare a Pokemon like Onix, Onix has one really good stat. It's good defense. But if you look at a Pokemon such as Alakazam, well, that has multiple. It has really good speed and really good special, which essentially meant it had a really high special attack and a high special defense. This is why a Pokemon such as Mewtwo was so dominating, because, well, look at its counters, Beedrill and Gengar, we've discussed this, and it had high special, high HP, high speed, it had absolutely everything it could just wreck the game with. Although, I'm not going to lie, playing the game just as Mewtwo is absolutely hilarious to do, and I've done so in the past. And considering we are talking about the special stat, let's look at that a little bit further. As I mentioned before, there was an attack stat and a special stat. Some moves that were classed as physical and some moves that were classed as special. So let's use, for example, fighting moves were predominantly physical moves. Normal, physical. Bug, physical. Fire, grass, electric, water, psychic were all special moves. That seems absolutely great, doesn't it? It makes it very clear. However, when you get some Pokemon, they get absolutely screwed by this. One example, Gyarados. Now I love Gyarados, he's an absolute monster. The problem was, his main stat was in a high attack. He was a water Pokemon and a flying type. And the problem was that the water moves he had, well, they were special moves, so they were based on his special stat, which meant his attack stat was never really used to the potential. They fixed this in Generation 4, where finally they added moves like Waterfall, which became a physical water move. You want more examples? Let's look at Ponyta and Rapidash. They have high attack. Great. Low special. Problem is, fire moves are special moves. So what stat does it come off? The attack? No. It comes off the special. Flareon is another example. It has really high attack, really poo special, and the problem was, fire moves were special. This was a real problem because there were so many Pokemon you might have wanted to use, but nope, you weren't going to be using them because of that special stat. It was absolutely terrible. And for some Pokemon, they could abuse that fact by one move, Amnesia. Amnesia was so good back in Generation 1 because it raised your special stat by 2 stages. And that effectively meant your attack and defense went up by 2 stages at this point. Now in the modern day game, Amnesia raises your defense by 2 stages. But as I said, in Generation 1, it was absolutely broken. Any Pokemon that had Amnesia could literally set themselves up to win, and they were the kings of everything. You want an example? Look at Snorlax. That thing had Amnesia. Abuse that as you may. Mewtwo had Amnesia. That thing didn't need any buffing stats, yet it got it. And oh my word, was it absolute king. You want other Pokemon that could abuse systems? Well, I don't think it was a system problem. You had a Pokemon like Chansey. I mentioned earlier Chansey was an absolute monster. It may not look at it by its appearance, but what's that thing use minimize? You weren't hitting it. It had a decent special, and the only moves you could really use to hurt it were physical, and the problem was most Pokemon relied on special stat. So use Minimize a few times, you ain't hitting it, it's going to use Toxic back at you, and if you even do manage to hit it, it will just heal the damage right back up. Chansey was broken, and I loved our little Chansey. Now, what else about this game is broken? Well, remember I talked about Erica and some of her Pokemon that you can use Wrap and Sleep? Yep, they were broken as well. Wrap and Sleep, they were some mechanics which didn't make any sense. Wrap would keep the opponent stuck in a move and little chips of damage would happen every turn, whilst Sleep would keep you asleep for so many turns. The problem was, when the Pokemon was able to either wake up or get out the Wrap, that was the end of their turn, they didn't get to hit back. So if the opponent was faster than it, they could just use Wrap again or Sleep again, straight away. And basically you could abuse this really well with a Pokemon like Dragonite. Once you use an agility, you're faster than everything in the game, and then you can just Wrap, 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 and win. And the only way you're gonna lose is if Wrap misses, because that's a broken strategy they never saw at the time. Thankfully, both of these were fixed in future generations. Yes, there also were some AI bugs which you can actually take advantage of. You want me to give an example of this? Let's look at the Elite Four match against Lance. A few of his Pokemon, the Dragonairs and the Dragonite, they have the move Agility, which is a Psychic move. However, if they go against something which is weak to Psychic, let's say for example a Muck, which is a Poison type, the AI will just see, that's a Poison type, I have a Poison move, I'm going to use it, and will just completely keep using Agility. Yeah, it's as fast as anything, but it's not going to do any damage. So Muck can sit there and just do whatever it wants. It was a funny little glitch if you knew how to abuse it. Another little thing which I thought was quite funny was the criticals. Now, criticals now are you have 1 in 16 chance of getting a critical hit, which means you do double damage and you bypass any of the buffs an opponent has. But back in those days, yeah, we didn't have a 1 in 16 stat. It was based on your speed stat. So if you were really quick Pokemon, like a Persian or a Jolteon, hey ho, the chances are you were getting critical hits. But if you were a Pokemon like Snorlax or Slowbro, no, you ain't getting them, sunshine. And it made it even worse when you had Pokemon like Persian, who had the move Slash, which increased your chances of getting critical hits. Basically meant that was always going to be a really ridiculously powered move. And also with a type advantage bonus, yes, if you have the same type advantage, you got 50% more damage. So Persian was a bit of a threat if you knew what you were doing with it. The problem was, the rest of its stats were pretty poo. Now, with these flaws, there's always a chance to do a revision. Look at Street Fighter 2, they did patches in Street Fighter 2 Turbo, Street Fighter 2 Hyper Fighting. There were always these extensions that came out. Pokemon had the ability to do that themselves when they released Pokemon Yellow version, and this was centered around the anime and Pikachu. What do you mean by that? Well, gone were the 3 starters, you couldn't choose them anymore, you could only choose Pikachu, and he used to follow you round all the time. He wouldn't go in a box, he wouldn't go in a Pokeball, yep, he was an unhappy little thing, and you could actually talk to him to see what mood he's in. And the other cool thing was, he talked! He talked like it was from the anime. And as this thing was based on the anime, Jesse and James were also in there as well, and you had to fight their teams they had from the games. The gym leaders were also still back in the games, but they had new sprites and new teams to correspond with what they had in the anime. For example, Lieutenant Surge now only has a Raichu. It was absolutely great to play these games again in essentially what we've already played, but changing a few little things made the experience all the better. For example, you have a Pikachu now, which essentially is like the Charmander mode. Impossible when you want to fight Brock and Onix and Geodude. However, now you can actually get a Mankey that has low kick, which would absolutely make Brock's Pokemon crumble. That wasn't in the original Red and Blue. These minor changes made the game more accessible, so you can use Pikachu as an actual viable member of your team. It also added new sprites and colour to the game, so the game felt fresh and fantastic to play in. You look at some of these sprites, they did a great thing. Let's look at Charizard then, Charizard now. Awesome. Pidgey then, Pidgey now. Awesome. Nidoking then, Nidoking. Oh. No, you did him dirty. That's not good. But also, one thing that was quite funny, it fixed something in the original game which made no sense, and that was the fact that Charizard couldn't bloody fly. Yes, it would not learn the move HM Fly, which made no sense because he's got wings. But thankfully, now he can. Glad we fixed that little problem. But I bought Pokemon Yellow as much as a lot of other people did, and it was a great success. I felt although I was playing the game once more, it felt fresh due to all the Pokemon being in different locations, the fact I was fighting new gym leader teams. Gary was essentially the main focus, and his team was completely different. He had an Eevee, and that final Eevee evolution was based on certain factors that happened in the games. It was a great little experience, and going forward, Pokemon did this up until Pokemon Platinum in Generation 4. But flaws aside, look, this game wasn't perfect. It was the first set of games they ever did, and they've improved the formula as it goes, game by game, generation by generation. And grow it did. Look, I just talked about Pokemon Yellow. It explained it. It was the anime version. And the funny thing was, whilst we were getting Red and Blue over in the West, Gold and Silver were about to hit. The anime even hit, and when the anime hit, Ho-Ho has appeared in the end. And that made no sense to us back then. It's like, hang on, you just told us there's 151 Pokemon, yet there's a Ho-Ho flying. What is that? We did later find out, but this is a time before the internet, remember? Yes, the game is far more balanced than it is now, but we always beg for Red, Blue, and Yellow to be coming out, to want them to be released. We're desperate for it. We want it on the Nintendo Switch all the time. Please release it, you cowards. The one thing we kept saying was please make it compatible with Pokemon Stadium, and then oh my god, it would be the best thing ever. The impact these games have had cannot be understated. No game had ever previously or will ever have the same sort of popularity, the same sort of buzz like this. It created a franchise which has got no end in sight apart from maybe creativity if there's suddenly the team at Game Freak and their minds blow up because they can't do it anymore. Hell, it even does its own Nintendo, and it has its own online presents, which is absolutely huge. But it all began with this game. It all brought us together. It was a huge social experiment / capitalism. Damn you, you got us. But it opened our eyes to what gaming could be. It really showed us that you could be the best there ever was. It showed us that, really, we're just big kids inside and we just need to get out there and have some fun. It took us to the world of Pokemon, and it's a world I'll never truly leave, and it's a world I'm eternally grateful for. And that was my bit of retrospective on Pokemon Red, Blue, and Yellow. If you have enjoyed this, then thank you so much. Please consider giving a like and subscribe and following us. And to also remind you, we do a podcast which covers games every week over wherever you can find your podcasts. Until then, I will see you all next time. Take care. Bye-bye.